Hi everyone. Recently I had a request from a viewer for assistance in finding the front of a potential bonsai, and I decided that would make a really good subject for a video, particularly when I acquired this hibiscus here. Now this is not really nursery material, it's pre-bonsai stock that I acquired from another grower. And we'll do a little bit of detective work here and try to figure out what we have. Now first, we have a sticker on the pot that says 5-gallon bougainvillea, and we know this isn't a bougainvillea, so obviously this is not the pot that this tree originated in. Now we have some tags inside the pot here. This one says hibiscus, full sun, root pruned 706. Which to me means the last time it was root pruned was about 5 years ago, so it's definitely due for a repotting. Now we have another tag here, hibiscus itsy bitsy Kona princess, which means this is probably a dwarf variety, and then it says 1982, which means this thing is almost 30 years old. So we got a real nice piece of material here, but we have a problem. And the problem is we've got 5 or 6 different trunks, and although it's got some age on it and an interesting appearance, there's really no telling where to set up the front of this thing when we start shaping it as a bonsai. Now I've been looking it over, and if we just leave it the way it is, it's going to come out looking kind of like a bush. And although this central trunk here is real nice and comes right up the center and we can arrange everything around it, it's not really necessarily the best option because it's not particularly thick or well developed in the upper trunk, and we've got a couple of others that are kind of distracting from it because they have more interesting shapes. Now this here looks kind of interesting. It's got this curve here, but if we start to tilt this thing so this becomes the dominant trunk, we have a couple of problems. One, we have what they call a pigeon breast formation, where the trunk is bulging towards the viewer. And the second problem is the top of it's going away from the viewer, and we can't really resolve that by bending because this is pretty thick. So we have to keep looking here. Now, option A, remember, was with this as the front, and I guess we could take the side back down. Now let's turn it around and see what we have on the other side. Now this is very interesting here because this is kind of the thickest, most dominant trunk on this side, and if we tilt it here, you get kind of an interesting appearance. This trunk is fairly tall and has some interesting curvature. And we can take the rest of these down, and then the conflict between this one and this one is going to be resolved because we're going to take it down low, turn it into a side branch, and we'll, since this won't be here anymore, it won't distract from this one. Now this could be an interesting main trunk here, but the problem is this one is thicker and more prominent on the base, and you're going to have a visual conflict there. So I'm going to look at it for just a minute here, and we're going to just sort of take our time and then look back at this again. Now one thing is for sure, regardless of what we do with this, I looked at this again just to rule out this possibility, and the problem here is we're going to end up with a thick trunk or mass of wood behind this one, which just visually is not going to work. Otherwise, that would be pretty interesting. But I think what we really have to do here is go with this one. Now either way, this thing's going to have to be tilted, and because this is a demonstration rather than real life, we're going to repot the tree first and then prune it after repotting so that you viewers can see the actual transition. So let's glove up here so that both for our own safety and for the safety of the tree. And then we'll take the mallet and see if we can get the tree out of the old pot. The roots on this tree are very healthy. After I obtained it earlier this summer when it was in rather poor health, I gave it a good dose of my fertilizer program, and it has lots of new growth on it now and lots of good root growth too. Now what I'm going to try to do is leave a little more on what's going to be the high side and then a little less on the low side to try to get it in the training pot. Now, as I suspected, I'm not finding any thick roots on it. It's all fine rootage. So we can just go right through with the root saw here. And we get very lucky with this. Yep, this worked out real well. Hibiscus trees have very soft wood, and when it's thin, it cuts fairly easily. So now that we have it out of here, we can go over to our tree. This is the tree's new planting angle. Now we can start to shape it. Now I'm going to remove what I obviously don't want first. And just try to rough shape it. You can wire hibiscus, but the wood is very springy. And because of that, it's hard to get branches to take a set just from wiring. Now, this isn't really going to be part of what we're doing here. So we're going to take this off here. And then we've got our future main trunk there, so this is going to be a back branch. So we'll take this down. And you may notice that some of these branches are rising, and in Japanese bonsai, that would be a definite no-no. But none of the old-time Japanese bonsai experts have ever worked on hibiscus. And hibiscus comes to us from the Chinese and Taiwanese bonsai tradition. And their tradition is a little bit different, and that's how we're going to shape this tree. It's kind of more according to the Chinese rules than the Japanese. Now this trunk here has to come up because it conflicts. And now we're going to get down to the more serious cuts. So we'll take a good careful look here and figure out where we want our new growth. I'm going to take this one down to here. Now this one may not be here always, but I'm not ready to take it off just yet. So I'm going to put it back to there. And this is another interesting trunk, which now has kind of an interesting future. It has some kind of branch on the tree. So we take that. And now we come down to this last big one. And how far are we going to take it down? And I have decided we can always take more off later. For now, this is where we're going. Now we'll just do a little cleanup. That one's dead, so we won't have to take that off. Unfortunate. We're going to need some future growth in that area. And that about finishes the shaping of our hibiscus. So now we have one dominant main trunk, and then we have some subordinate branching that rises and will fill out to the sides and give us the rest of the tree. Now it's not going to be trained downward like your traditional Japanese bonsai, because hibiscus don't grow that way in nature. And we're just going to kind of follow what it wants to do, while at the same time try to get a nice tree-like image. So we'll do sort of a slow 360 here and show you where we are now. Thank you for watching, folks.